and the thyroid gland. So in the last video we have seen the apparatus called as the pharyngeal apparatus. So from where actually the tongue and the thyroid gland will be developing. So before that one, let us see about the just the development of the tongue first of all, followed by the thyroid gland. And now here it develops in the tongue develops in the floor of the developing mouth. So floor of the mouth, that too by the fourth week, actually fourth week of the intrauterine life. So that next one, the contributing areas, actually at the end of the fourth week what happens is that there will be a swelling, median, or that is the central triangular swelling is there, that is called as the tuberculum impar, which is one of the contributing component of the developing tongue. So which develops in the floor of the primitive pharynx, just cranial to the foramen cecum. So now after that tuberculum impar appearance, which will be followed by the lateral swellings called as the lingual swellings, that is called as the lingual swelling. So at the end, to conclude, just the in a simple line, these two are the main contributing areas for the development of the tongue. Okay, so the two lateral lingual swellings are placed slightly distally. So now what happens is that after the tuberculum impar, there is one another eminence called as the hypobranchial eminence, a second large eminence, the median eminence, that is called as the hypobranchial eminence. So that hypobranchial eminence also will be contributing, so which will be dividing into large cranial part and the small caudal part. So now here, before that one, let us have a faster diagrammatic review of the contributing compartments here. So in the last video we have seen the arches here. So this is the apparatus, pharyngeal apparatus. So in relation to the first arch, there actually appears the swellings, that is the two lingual swellings, the two lingual swellings, 1 and 2. Okay, and then there is a midline swelling called as the tuberculum impar. Here in the midline there is the tuberculum impar, and then behind that one there will be the foramen cecum, and then behind that one there will be the hypobranchial eminence. So almost till the that limited will be till the fourth arch. So 1 2 3 and 4. So these are the lingual swellings, and then here that is the tuberculum impar. So that is the tuberculum impar, and here which is the foramen cecum, and then here this is the hypobranchial eminence. Okay, so now after this one what is happening is that the hypobranchial eminence is divided into the uh, subdivides into the large cranial part and the small caudal part. Okay, so now we will see the large cranial part and the small caudal part. So that means, so that is about the large cranial and then the small caudal part. So after this one, that is small caudal part. And now further what is happening is that we will be seeing this is the basic information about the contributory parts of the tongue. So now we will try to understand the how actually the various parts of the tongue will be developing. And it's a very important short answer question oftenly asked. So now that is about the development. Now we will see any individually without the arches actually. So now here the lingual swellings, and then in between the lingual swellings, that is the tuberculum impar, and then behind that, that is the foramen cecum, and then still behind that one, that is followed by the hypobranchial eminence with the large caudal part and a small cranial part. So this is the hypobranchial eminence, small caudal part and the large cranial part. So now after this one, what is happening is that let us try to understand here. So these are the lingual swellings. These are the lingual swellings, and this is the tuberculum impar, and after this one, this is the foramen cecum, and here this is the hypobranchial eminence, so cranial part, caudal part. Fine. Now here let us try to see the two lateral lingual swellings. Okay. So the two lateral lingual swellings overgrow the tuberculum impar now. Okay. So from the tuberculum impar, and then what happens is that they merge with each other to form the anterior two-thirds of the tongue. So let us see once again. So now the two lateral swellings overgrow the tuberculum impar, and what do they do is that they contribute the anterior two-thirds of the tongue due to, and then the line of fusion appears as the median plane, that median sulcus, sorry. Okay, so median sulcus are that too on the dorsal surface of the tongue. And most important point to be noted is that tuberculum impar doesn't give any structure of importance in the adult tongue. So now let us try to see how the tongue is being formed. So the two lingual swellings, they are forming the anterior two-third of the tongue. So I will be drawing with the same color, that is okay. So and as we have seen, that is the median sulcus. Okay, so that median sulcus will be starting from the foramen cecum. So now this is only the anterior two-thirds of the tongue, which is developed from the anterior two-thirds of the tongue, which is developed from the two lateral lingual swellings, and in the midline, that is the median sulcus. Now no, there is no contribution by the tuberculum impar. Now, what happens is that the posterior one third of the tongue, so anterior two thirds is done. Now, the posterior one third of the tongue, that is developed from the cranial part of the hypobranchial eminence. That is developed from the cranial part of the hypobranchial eminence. So that is the with the red color. So now here this is the posterior two thirds, sorry, posterior one third of the tongue, posterior one third of the tongue. So now the line of the fusion between these two, between anterior two thirds and the posterior one third, that is called as the V-shaped groove, that is called as the sulcus terminalis. That is called as the sulcus terminalis. So what is the sulcus terminalis doing? Its basic function is to divide the anterior two third and the posterior one third of the tongue. So now this posterior one third of the tongue, including the valid papillae, that is developing from the third pharyngeal arch due to which the posterior one third that is supplied by the glosso, that should be by rule, as we have seen in the last video on the pharyngeal apparatus, that is to be developed by, sorry, that is to be innervated by the ninth nerve. The reason is simple, because that is being derived from the third arch. And now the most posterior part of the tongue, and then the epiglottis, that is derived from the caudal part of the hypobranchial eminence. So this is the, sorry, this is the caudal part of the hypobranchial eminence. So we will just use a different color here. So now the most caudal part of the tongue, that is the caudal part of the posterior part of the tongue, so that is derived from the caudal part of the hypobranchial eminence. Okay, so we will say posterior most part, so that is from the caudal part of the hypobranchial eminence. And also this also the caudal part, it also gives rise to the epiglottis. So this is the epiglottis. So this is the epiglottis, the most posterior part of the tongue, and epiglottis that develops from the caudal part. And as they are developing from the caudal part, the mucous membrane particularly, it is derived, it is supplied by the superior laryngeal nerve. So that we have seen in the last video. Why? Because that is the nerve of the fourth arch. Now during the sequence of these events, what happens is that the third arch is burying over the third arch mesoderm grows over the mesoderm of the second arch, so that we will see in a sidewards picture. So that is the now we will be seeing the first arch here, and then here, that is the second arch. Okay, and now most important concept here, that is the third arch burying the second arch. Okay, so due to which, so now here we will be writing the contribution. So first arch, second arch, and here this is the third arch. Okay, so now that the color difference, the color difference explains, there will be the difference in the development of the tongue. So anterior two thirds, that is the anterior two thirds, that is from the first arch, second arch is buried, and third arch is overgrowing that one. Okay, so that is one important point to be noted here. Now after this one, so this is more or less about the mucous membrane. Now what about the muscles of the tongue? The muscles of the tongue, they are developed from the myoblast. They are developed from the myoblast that migrate into the occipital, sorry, that migrate from the occipital myotome. So now we can say the muscles of the tongue are derived from the occipital myotomes. So from where the myoblast will be appearing, and from where they will be developed. And these tongue muscles are supplied by the hypoglossal nerve, that is the 12th nerve. Why? Because that is the nerve of the occipital myotome. So the migration, so sometimes some muscles of the tongue may develop into the in situ also. Okay, so now after understanding this one, just to say the correlation, actually the correlation of the nerve supply we can see. Okay, so now let us try to understand the mucous membrane and the taste buds. So anterior two thirds, so that is why it is derived, that is why it is supplied by the lingual and then the chorda tympani. Why? Because that are the nerves of the first arch. Now as there is no second arch contribution, directly the third arch, and as I have written here, that is the glossopharyngeal nerve. Why? Because that is the nerve of the third arch. Okay, and most posterior, that is from the that is from the fourth arch. So and that is why it is derived from the, that is now supplied by the superior laryngeal nerve, because that is the nerve of the fourth arch. Okay, so this is about the this is about the description about the development of the tongue. And now usually the which will be followed by the anomalies of the tongue. So the basically the anomalies of the tongue, usually there are of two types. sorry, not two types, many types actually. So first of all, rare, but oftenly we will find that there will be the absence of the tongue. It is very rare. Okay, so that condition is called as the eglossia. Eglossia will be there, and then hemiglossia will be there. That means only one half of the lingual swellings fails to develop. So then microglossia, and most importantly there is a condition called as the ankyloglossia. There is a condition called as the ankyloglossia. So what do you mean by this ankyloglossia is that when the frenulum of the tongue, okay, so when the frenulum of the tongue extends to the tip of the tongue, okay, so that means actually the tongue is attached to the under surface. So if you assume this is the tongue, usually in the normal people it will be somewhere here only, the frenulum. Now the ankyloglossia people, what happens is that the frenulum will be extending till the tongue. So this is, we will label it as the abnormal frenulum. Abnormal frenulum. So now after this one, the bifid tongue. Okay, so next one will be the bifid tongue, and then that is the lingual thyroid. That is the lingual thyroid. So the that is about the lingual thyroid, and then fissuring of the tongue and the hypertrophy of the lingual papillae. So that is a basic condition of the Down syndrome. So basically these are all the anomalies of the uh, congenital anomalies of the tongue: eglossia, hemiglossia, microglossia, macro, sometimes opposite of the micro, that is the tongue is too large, and then ankyloglossia, that is called as the tongue tie. Okay, and then the next we will be following this with the thyroid. Okay, so there we will see about the lingual thyroid also. Okay, so that is about the development of the tongue, and now we will be following with the development of the thyroid gland, which is always an important question. And as there are structured questions in the protocol or the proforma, the LAQ will be going like this: describe the thyroid gland under following heads. That is the structure, relations, coverings, and then the embryology, and then the histology also can be asked. So that is, now we will see the development of the thyroid gland. Development of the thyroid gland. So now this thyroid gland, the thyroid gland, what happens is that it begins to develop during the third week of the IUL. So third week, so that is the third week of the intrauterine life. Third week of the intrauterine life, and how that is between the tuberculum impar and the pupilla. So now what is happening is that the thickening forms a small outpouching, so that is depressed, and below the surface to form a diverticulum, that is called as the thyroglossal duct. So the duct first grows downwards, and then what is happening is that slightly forward across the tongue, and then descends in front of the tongue. So now we will see how it is developing. So first of all, there is an endodermal thickening. So here this is the endodermal thickening here. So, and then from where, this is the first stage. So from here, the second stage, what happens is that the outpouching happens. The outpouching of the endodermal thickening, it happens, and then it is followed by the formation of the thyroglossal cyst. Sorry, that is the thyroglossal duct. Extremely sorry, that is thyroglossal duct. So here, now after this one, the in the fourth stage, what happens is that the thyroglossal duct at the end, what does it do is that it bifurcates, which is a very important phenomenon. Okay, so bifurcates, and now what is happening is that after this bifurcation is happening in the fifth level. So now the developing thyroid, so the bifurcated will be developing in the size, and from the neural crest cells, what is happening is that the cells gets migrated. So the red color what I am showing, that is the neural crest cells. That is the neural crest cells. So that is the fifth stage. And lastly, finally, what happens is that the thyroglossal duct will get disappears. So now what I will do is that I will draw with a dotted line. So that means the thyroglossal duct is disappearing, and then what happens is that the gland will be developing like this. So this is the isthmus, also called as the bridge between the two lobes, and slightly elevated lobe, that is called as the pyramidal lobe. So slightly elevated lobe, that is called as the pyramidal lobe. Okay, and here this is the lateral lobe. So grossly saying, this is the this is the development of the thyroid gland. Okay, so what we will do is that the development of the thyroid, this is the development. Now let us try to see where the cells are coming from, the histogenesis. Okay, so by the before that one, let us try to see once again the thyroglossal duct. It grows downwards and slightly forward, and by the end of the seventh week, what happens is that it reaches the definitive position. So the thyroglossal duct, it reaches the definitive position by the seventh week of IUL. By the seventh week of the IUL, and now where it tips becomes a solid cells, and it soon bifurcates. And now what happens is that the bifurcate tip of thyroglossal duct gives rise to the two lobes that we have seen, connected by a isthmus. And now the parafollicular or the C cells. Okay, so important point, that is the parafollicular cells or the C cells, parafollicular cells or C cells. Okay, they are derived from the neural crest. And what do? They migrate to the lateral lobes, are contributed by the neural crest cells. And now between them, the floor of the primitive pharynx and then the connecting link, that is a gland, the thyroglossal duct, gets obliterated. And now in the previous part of this video, we have seen a structure called as the foramen cecum, and that the opening of the thyroglossal duct, it persists like that, and that is called as persists as the small pit on the dorsum of the tongue as the foramen cecum. So in 50% of the people, what happens is that the pyramidal lobe differentiates from the distal end and often attached to the hyoid bone, that is called as the levator glandulae thyroid. So now the sorry, actually, the thyroid primordium, it is consisting about a solid mass of the endoderm cells. It breaks into a network of the epithelial cords laterally, and then what happens is that the lumen soon forms in these clusters. In the histology of the thyroid gland, you have seen, we have been observing uh, the the cells like this. Okay, so cuboidal cells, and these are the clusters of the cells. And these clusters, what is happening is that in the very early stage, the thyroid primordium is consisting of the solid mass and breaks up into a network of the epithelial cells, and now a lumen soon forms in each of these cell clusters. So this is what I am speaking of, the lumen forms in each of the cell clusters. And by the end of the third month, okay, so this is not week, please observe clearly, that is the third month. Okay, so the follicular cells start producing the colloid, that is the source of the thyroxine and then the T3 triiodothyronine. So at the same time, these parafollicular cells, so what we have written here, these parafollicular cells, what they are doing, they are derived from the neural crest cells, and they start producing the calcitonin. So as they are producing calcitonin, we are naming that as the C cells. Okay, so that is about the thyroid gland development. Okay, so now followed by, as usually, the anomalies of the thyroid gland. So anomalies of the thyroid development here. So first of all, that is the anomalies position. Okay, so positional anomalies. Now here what happens is that first of all, that is the lingual thyroid. So lingual thyroid and sublingual thyroid. Lingual thyroid and then the sublingual thyroid. So what happens is that the thyroid tissue infrequently forms somewhere along the thyroglossal duct. In the previous video we have seen. So that is the most common abnormal site of the thyroid tissue formation. So that is why it is called as the lingual thyroid. And somewhere if it is between the high in the neck, just below the hyoid bone, that is called as the sublingual thyroid. Okay, so now let us try to understand with a small diagram here. Okay, so here if you observe, this is the tongue and teeth, and now here this is the hyoid bone, hyoid bone. Okay, and here we will be seeing the side view, that is the thyroid cartilage, thyroid cartilage, on which we will be seeing the, on which we will, so this is the thyroid gland lateral view. Okay, now let us try to understand the abnormal positions. Okay, so first of all, this is the lingual thyroid within the within the tongue tissue. Okay, so infralingual thyroid and then suprahyoid thyroid, or else infrahyoid thyroid, infrahyoid thyroid. So this is the passage along the thyroglossal duct. Okay, so now we will be numbering them so that we will write and understand. Okay, so now 1, 2 and 3, they are the lingual, infralingual and supra hyoid. So so okay, so we will try to see here. So one is the lingual, next second position, that is the infralingual, third is the suprahyoid, suprahyoid, and the fourth one here, this is the fourth position, so that is the infrahyoid position. So these are all the positional abnormalities of the thyroid gland. So propositional abnormalities. And now after this one, the second is the abnormal abnormal anomalous lobes and the shapes. Second is the anomalous lobes and then the shapes. Anomalous lobes and then the shape. So one of the lateral lobes may be missing. So lateral lobe may be missing here. Lateral lobe may be missing here. Be missing, and then pyramidal lobe often rises up from the upper aspect. It may be too small or the too large. And now importantly, the thyroglossal cyst. Okay, so that is the thyroglossal cyst or the fistula. So may form anywhere along the course, and the actually that should atrophy and then they disappear, but a part of it may persist in the midline or in the front of the neck, and usually observed by the age of 5 years. So now if the thyroglossal cyst ruptures and it communicates exterior, then that is called as the thyroglossal fistula. And then accessory thyroid, some near to the normal position, some small masses of the small nodules of the thyroid tissue can be found in the close proximity, and close proximity, and they are often of insufficient size to maintain the normal function. So now when the thyroglossal cyst is persisting or the fistula is persisting, it should be noted that it is essential to remove, it has to be removed, the thyroglossal duct and its remnants. So that is that is about the, these are all about the anomalies of the thyroid gland. Thank you.